All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the Sitefinity and Znode Better Together webinar. First in a series of webinars I think we're planning on doing together. Great to have everybody here. Great to cover some of this exciting content. I'm excited about this. And we're going to get into why and what that's all about and why Flywheel, my agency, is particularly excited about this venture, this partnership between Sitefinity and Znode. It's we've been building B2B digital experiences using Sitefinity for many years. And we've kind of come across different e-commerce solutions along the way, and some of that has even been a lot of custom work. Anyway, I won't get ahead of it. Let me bring in my esteemed speakers and co-panelists here. I've got Tom Fleury from Znode and Sergey Sokolov from Progress. Hello to you both, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Everybody, we will take some questions along the way, so feel free to pop them in, and I'll keep an eye on that. We'll have some time at the end as well if we don't get to that along the way. It's all about measuring the impact of these experiences. I mentioned we're going to be doing a few other webinars we're going to get into in future series, talking about personalizing experiences in B2B commerce, talking about measuring content impact and experience success, specifically with a Znode and a Sitefinity integration. So if you want to follow along and continue this conversation with us, please find us on LinkedIn, find the channel of your choice, and we'll get you that information. Sign up to our newsletters and all those fun things. Personally, I live on LinkedIn, so you won't miss a beat if that's where you're following along. So why are we here today? What are we talking about? It is really about embracing the broader context of what it means to have a good digital experience and what the CMS market looks like, focusing on the challenges of integrating different platforms, and what that sort of ease of experience should really actually be about. So if you're listening today and you are in the throes of trying to figure this out and you're evaluating platforms and e-commerce choices and DXP options right now, get in touch. We'll get on a call. We'll do a demo. We'll get you the information you need. You don't have to wait till we do every single one of these webinars or whatnot. We're more than happy, of course. But today is all about introducing these platforms to our audience, to the folks on that sort of coming in from the Sitefinity vantage point and that are more experienced with Znode. We'll explore today how integrating with a best-in-class CMS gives you that robust B2B commerce experience, and how Znode can streamline some of those operations. And really with these two platforms together, that's why we're excited at Flywheel. It is this wholesome experience. So let's bring in some other people to contribute to the conversation. I'll pick on Sergey in a moment, but first, over to you, Tom. Why did Znode decide that Sitefinity was a good platform to align with?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things, Scott. First of all, I think there's a market need. So what I'm coming at this from a product perspective and an e-commerce product perspective is we know that a lot of manufacturers are now moving into e-commerce, and manufacturers have needs for lots of top of funnel content and lots of personalization. More than likely, they're selling globally. So there's a big need for content and commerce to come together. I think the other market need is there's not a lot of great e-commerce platforms to serve manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
As a lot of people know, B2B is this growing area in e-commerce, but B2B is there's segments of B2B. There's B2B for distributors. There's B2B for small distributors. There's B2B for manufacturers. But when you look at what the market needs for manufacturers, absolutely need content, top of the funnel content, personalization, and all the other benefits that come with a leading CMS being Sitefinity, and the need for true B2B functionality that Znode provides. So things like portal experiences that include ordering, approval,
Yeah.
workflow, and routing, all kinds of things. And to me, it was Sitefinity is a great product. Architecturally, we have a lot of things in common if we're talking technology, but at the end of the day, I think the market needs these two together.
Yeah, that's great for sure. I'll just echo what you said about that B2B, some of the points you're mentioning about the B2B e-commerce experience. We like to talk about the solutions as being ones that shouldn't really distinguish between the experience that a B2C experience is trying to provide and what a B2B purchaser, buyer wants. We're all people at the end of the day. And a good, rich, well-designed B2B user experience is going to be just as delightful and rewarding and effective as if you'd put that energy into a B2C experience. And there's no reason you need to compromise when it is a B2B experience. What I in the B2B commerce work that we've done, it's always somewhat custom. There's always been some way we've needed to modify a consumer platform in order to accommodate that manufacturer or distributor scenario, or we've just had to make some compromises and make it work with a consumer platform, or it's had to be completely custom in order to get some of these experiences done right. So when we saw Znode enter this ecosystem, we were particularly excited. I mean, tell us a little bit about the platform itself and why it is appropriate for B2B and what is unique and what is the difference from a B2C experience that Znode enables?
Sure. Yeah, good question. So, and you brought up a good point. You talked about traditional consumer platforms or B2C platforms, and B2B just needs a lot more flexibility. I had heard some data from an analyst that over 50% of companies selling B2B have more than one storefront.
Hmm.
And Zenode's very well known for the ability to manage multiple web stores centrally. And how that's possible is another unique differentiator of Znode, which is at the core of Znode is a PIM or a product information management system, which allows for unlimited catalog creation. Why does that matter? I was literally just on a call with a company that said our biggest issue is managing catalogs in
Hmm.
B2B commerce. Why is that? Customers have specific catalog needs. You either have to have catalogs stood up by segment. If you have a government contract, you probably have to have a specifically approved procured catalog.
Right.
Managing all of that in a traditional B2C platform is very difficult because the architecture of a B2C platform is single catalog, single store.
Right.
It was never meant for the complexity or flexibility. So those are some of the things that are native in Znode. The ability to manage multiple stores, multiple catalogs, apply catalogs across multiple stores so you can easily manage your data centrally. And then there's a bunch of other things that matter in B2B, account-based pricing, shipping rules. I could go down to all the different e-commerce entities, but being able to create an experience based upon the contract rules that may have been in place for 50 or 60 years
Right.
and at least sit in an ERP, hopefully, not in a filing cabinet, and have to be configured for each specific account. All of that is configurable in Znode too.
Yeah. So it's really about enabling that authenticated experience and the contextual understanding of who is shopping on your site, who's engaging with the content. I'll just add also that you end up being the tool for your customer. You're often providing to your customer something that they live inside for a large part of their workday because they're configuring pricing, they're comparing information, they're facilitating a function that the rest of the organization relies heavily on. And a lot of the B2B experiences that we've seen are tools to enable that kind of productivity on behalf of your clients. And it wouldn't be possible without, and the kind of platform that understands those nuances. All right, Sergey, you've been sitting patiently listening. Thank
Of
you.
course.
Same question to you, and thank you again for joining us. Why is it important for Sitefinity to have a partner in their ecosystem like Znode?
Well, I'll start sort of from a high level, and there are different levels of alignment that you're looking for when you choose a partner, right? It's like in life. So we basically can talk about market alignment, technology alignment, et cetera, et cetera. And Sitefinity historically has been an open system with respect to e-commerce implementations. We never had pretty much anything exclusive to us. Yes, we had our own e-commerce system that we acquired a long time ago. That's now discontinued. So that
Mhm.
served small use cases, kind of
So you
small
had a
as
hole to fill. Yeah.
B2C. Right. So we had a whole fill. We have uh, quite a sizable number of customers in manufacturing, really, really impressive global brands,
Right.
but also local brands, distributors, et cetera, et cetera. So we see it as an opportunity, and we kind of have been seeking a partner who would fit in our general mold, which is a flexible system, active in mid-market, scalable, secure. Technology alignment isn't as important if you talk about API integration and so forth, but it just happens that Znode is also friendly with Microsoft and based on .NET Stack.
Right.
So these things add up, and they sort of led us to realizing that if we think about our customers who are in manufacturing, or as a matter of fact, in any other B2B type of
Yep.
relationship, because we have a large energy customer that produces and sells energy. They're also a B2B type company. We just don't think of energy as something that you would put in a catalog.
Right.
But in a sense, all of that gets under the umbrella of B2B. So the alignment really worked well. We can talk about cultural alignment, and so far the experience has been great with Znode in terms of starting the cooperation, presenting jointly, and so forth. So these things kind of keep on reinforcing each other, and we're certainly looking to expanding the collaboration and working on joint customer implementations.
Fantastic. I mean, I'll add there that when we are helping customers look for a platform on the DXP CMS side, there are options for that say yes, and e-commerce is part of what you're going to get in this package. And sadly, they do a good job of sort of the brochure, but you get behind the surface, below the surface a bit, and you realize they've really just sort of checked a box on their feature sheet to help them sell another license. So what I really appreciate about Sitefinity's approach to the market and posture in this particular segment is the openness to best in class partner, and realizing that this is a critical thing to get right, and there's a good way to position ourselves in parallel with those kinds of partners and other contributors.
Yep. So
Um,
I'd also like to add, Scott, that I talked about sort of the market fit and all the others. We also see an opportunity to contribute our solution towards a superior joint implementation because Sitefinity has really strong sides in things that matter for a B2B commerce.
right.
Because Tom talked about multiple portal sites, right? 4 different distributors, multiple storefronts. Um, Even though it's no longer kind of exclusive or even differentiating, but Sitefinity has really streamlined options for managing multiple sites
Hmm.
that support sharing
Sharing
brand
content.
styles,
Yeah.
sharing content types, and of course that all um, rises up to building a joint and continuous experience starting from your arrival at the brand site, authenticating, ending up in the context that you can sort of configure and personalize using information about who is visiting to enable a better overall experience. And
Absolutely.
going back to, all right, well, what are the standards for B2B experience? They're influenced by the B2C experiences that we as private citizens or our customers, users as private citizens have on the best-in-class B2C sites. So I think it's compelling to offer that sort of a package to a B2B company that wants to differentiate itself. I think
For
we
sure.
very much fit fabulously together to strive to deliver that sort of a solution.
And what I have always appreciated about Sitefinity is its scalability posture, the way that it is appropriate for, established but emerging businesses, all the way up to global enterprise organizations. You touched on, multi-site management. I will add in the out-of-the-box capability of multilingual support. Tom talked about authenticated experiences. That is out of the box with any flavor of Sitefinity that you got. That you get. So the value proposition here of just kind of having the two systems together that are so nicely situated for their market purpose, but also understanding, and in your case, Tom, like as manufacturers scale and grow, and I don't think they all start out thinking they're going to need multiple storefronts, but one day they get a call and they get a government contract, and then they need to grow into that level of market sophistication as well.
Yeah, absolutely. They get the government contract, or they land 3 new distribution channels in another region of the world, and they have to support those channels. So nobody's planning for it, but the beautiful thing is with the internet, you can build your business quickly globally if you have the right platforms to support it.
Yeah, and I think, I've been talking lately, a theme has been emerging, about the concept of technology debt and people making these quick decisions to try and get into market, or to scratch a niche or satisfy some immediate need, and then you end up with a collection of solutions that just don't fit well together or were hastily assembled. And if you can take a pause in a moment and just be a little bit more organized, you'll realize that, again, with Znode and Sitefinity, you have this option to do a market entry, do your first digital experience first real one, first honest one, for some of these types of businesses, and you'll know with confidence that you've got the right kind of infrastructure to let you scale without worrying about whether or not you've made the right choice. Okay, so we talked about why we've gotten into this partnership, some of the business value of working together. We've covered how that unified content and commerce strategy can drive customer engagement. Just to put a summary there, the capabilities of personalization, rich content editing, in Sitefinity, combined with the catalog experience of Znode is what this is all about. So when we put this together, what we find a lot in this space is you'll get a fresh digital experience manager who wants to advance the impact and the effectiveness of selling in a B2B ecosystem. They've got all these ideas, they've got all these intentions, they've got all these campaigns they want to execute, but they just don't have a good tool set for actually being able to do it. And so what this does together with the content capabilities of Sitefinity and the good, robust commerce infrastructure of Znode is it allows a modern digital marketer to execute campaigns that they know are going to drive effectiveness and results without getting frustrated that the tool set is holding them back. Yeah. All right, back over to my notes here. Let's talk about integration. Let's get technical for a few minutes. We've alluded to this flexibility and a shared technology stack. let's spend 10 minutes or so just kind of what that means from the vantage point of each particular platform. So Tom, let's pick on you first. What is it about the Znode architecture that allows integration to work as well as it does? And feel free to make this an agnostic answer because it's not always about the CMS. You've got lots of other systems involved in a good B2B commerce experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So Zenode's architecture is API first. So I'll start with Sitefinity. What that means is it's very easy for Sitefinity to be the presentation layer and leverage all of the capabilities in Sitefinity and also pull all the data from Znode as a headless platform. And not just product information. It could be exposing the right catalog, the right product information. It could also be exposing B2B rules such as account specific pricing. Go down the list. There's so many different things in B2B, but the flexibility is there. But the bigger thing is the flexibility to expose it. Znode also, as an API first platform, is also pulling in lots of other data from other systems, which is absolutely crucial in B2B. So every manufacturer, every distributor, the heart of their operations is their ERP. Znode has a connector framework to integrate with ERPs, pull ERP data into Znode, display that in the front end into Sitefinity. Other systems that are absolutely crucial. You have the common ones like payment gateways and tax, but a big one nowadays is becoming shipping.
Mm-hmm.
So you have competitive carriers, you let the customer choose their shipping options. The amount of margin that can be saved on choosing the right shipper is amazing when it comes to efficiencies in e-commerce. So another example, but those are all different pieces of data that can flow through Znode and can be presented in the front end experience in Sitefinity.
That's awesome. My thoughts are tripping over myself. So I'll let Sergey go next, and then maybe I'll see how
you'll catch up, right?
Yeah,
With your thoughts.
I just didn't want to monopolize again with some of the exciting thoughts that I have. Go ahead, Sergey. What is it about Sitefinity and integration capabilities that make it well suited to connecting to other platforms, Znode included?
All right. So I'll start with overall architecture pattern. Sitefinity is a decoupled system. So it has two different parts. The core CMS, which is used for managing content, putting together pages, and all of that nice modeling stuff. And the experience layer, which we call the render, that connects to the core CMS services via APIs and renders the experience separately. So you can manage these independently. The separation of content and presentations has been a Sitefinity cornerstone for years and years and years, but we took that a step further 3 years back, and now the system basically has two layers. Now, the implication that it has on both interoperability and extensibility is that you can do it in two different ways. That when you deal with information, you can use content modeling with Sitefinity for pretty much any business object. We have very flexible, hierarchical, nesting, however you call it.
I told you guys we'd get technical.
Right. That can be configured without coding.
Correct.
And you can represent more or less any part object, business object, whether it even contracts in some sense. We have customers who model customer contracts using Sitefinity content.
Mm-hmm.
And that content can be mated to the experience widgets. And that mapping is pretty flexible. So you can, as Scott talked about, pretty much any e-commerce implementation ends up being customized in one way or another. There's a framework for creating widgets that for a business user end up being low code, no code configurable again. So all of that connectivity between content and sort of these atoms on a page that display content can be done by the business user once the IT team have done their job. Now, so you can integrate to the core services and share information that way through Sitefinity. It can be sort of a pass-through. It can be save and transmit. Either way is possible. Now, you can also do it independently at the renderer level. So you can access real-time data if you need to through one of these widgets, and that integration will happen again in sort of a different app, but that can be updated in real time, whether it's real-time availability or anything of the sort. Wrapping all of that, of course, is still the ability to contextualize and personalize how you render these experiences. So you sort of bounce between, okay, you can connect via APIs to almost any point, which is a technical implication. But you can also enable the business user in a very intuitive sort of point and click way to say, well, this kind of a customer is going to see this kind of a catalog, and a different kind of a customer is going to see a different catalog, maybe even with a different theme, maybe on a page structure differently, and maybe even with a promotion.
Right.
And that all happens at the level of configuration as opposed to at the level of development. So one of our principles in developing Sitefinity, and of course it's almost an infinite journey, but we keep it as one of the tenets, that no content update should be an IT ticket. So whatever you want to present to your end user, once the basic building blocks are put in place by the development team, the web development team, the business users should be able to go do it, deploy it, review it, approve it, deploy it, and scale it.
Absolutely. If anybody wants to see what Sergey's talking about, let me know. We can show you how these dynamic modules are built with a few clicks and drag and drop into the page editor. And we are indeed working on and have made a lot of progress on a project that does have a direct integration with Znode. So we're happy to show that to anybody in a sort of a one-on-one context. It is really wonderful when you get to think more about the business result than the technical nitty-gritty of how you're going to accomplish this. One integration point that I know you didn't touch on there, Sergey, was the integration hub and the ability to execute triggers that can send signals out into other systems. So if we're looking at that sort of wholesome digital marketer experience as well, knowing when they have managed to log in, add to cart, complete a purchase, there are hooks and ways to instantly react to those moments, which in the B2B space in general, not just B2B commerce, is so much more impactful than, well, maybe not so much more, but I think for my thesis here in the moment is that high touch, contextualized, timely experiences are that much more powerful and potentially lucrative in the B2B space. And so when we're legitimately like really talking about e-commerce and actual purchases, not just digital marketing, I think that gets even more real. And so I just wanted to highlight the ability within Sitefinity to build some of those digital marketing journeys, those traditional digital marketing journeys, now with the context of that shopping experience.
Yep. Well, Scott, this is absolutely right up your valley, right? It shouldn't be surprising, right? You would talk about digital marketing. This is, and thanks for bringing it up. I'll just add a couple of things here that there is the DXP and e-commerce integration, right? There's lots of data, contextualization, separate catalogs, et cetera, et cetera. Then there is the overall marketing stack integration, because these systems exist in individualized by organization ecosystem of whatever was assembled as their so-called digital experience platform, the unique digital experience platform with their own marketing automation, monitoring, analytics, CRM, you name it. And different data representing the journeys, the actions, the trigger events, models, et cetera, need to be properly exchanged. And Sitefinity Integration Hub, which is almost a year old. We released it last year. We collaborated with the state-of-the-art iPaaS platform, Workato. They have an OEM version that we embedded in our offering. Of course, there are layers that enhance the user journeys on the back end for the business users, so that you have again, backend common authentication. You can jump to the solution that's framed within Sitefinity as opposed to going to a third party. But that platform allows us to, again, with low code, no code approach, connect and transfer data to either in bulk or based on events to and from literally thousands of systems in the digital space. Data lakes, CRMs, marketing automation, some PIMs, et cetera, not to mention some of the native integrations that we have that require a little more sophistication sort of in the back and forth.
Excellent. So we've kind of reached the end of some of the notes and prompts that I meant to toss at both of you. So thanks for playing along. If anybody on the call watching this has any questions that haven't come in yet, pop them in, and we'll take a few more minutes to address those. Tom, Sergey, any closing thoughts? Anything that we didn't touch on? Maybe Tom, I'll give you sort of a moment for a final word from the Znode side of things.
Yeah, I mean, my wrap up is we're excited about this. The two platforms complement each other perfectly. And again, I'm going to end it the way I started. I think that there's a strong market need right now for a best of breed CMS, a best of breed B2B e-commerce platform to come together and to solve big issues for manufacturers, distributors, and these two platforms work very well together.
What do you think is the sort of the crux of the challenge that that an e-commerce manager has had that will sort of be relieved with this new partnership?
Great question. Flexibility.
Yeah.
Again, I'm coming at it from a product standpoint in the e-commerce space. The prospects we're talking to that move to Znode move because of the lack of flexibility in their existing platform. And when I talk about B2B commerce, the number one thing I talk about is flexibility and what Znode provides. But when I hear Sergey talk and we talk about our partnership, it's the same flexibility that you get with Sitefinity as well.
Right. So I'm going to add a little bit more clarity, because there is a question that has come in more about exactly what is the final solution that you get with Znode and Sitefinity together. And we've talked a little bit, I think, probably assuming that our audience, has a bit more familiarity with each platform. So let me try and sort of address that uncertainty. Znode, and jump in, gentlemen. Znode is an e-commerce platform. It is meant for B2B use cases, although it can be used for more traditional use cases as well. And that at its core is what it is solving for, is a really good e-commerce experience. It has all the capabilities on the back end for managing products, catalogs, pricing, orders, shipping, fulfillment, and integration with an ERP to extract and fulfill those orders. Sitefinity is a digital experience platform. It's a content management system that allows you to build very rich traditional and modern digital experiences. The partnership allows customers to have the best of both worlds, a very rich, modern, wholesome digital experience imbued with all the values of a good content plan and modern digital marketing tactics, with a very good, uncompromised storefront experience. So in the past, you've kind of looked at commerce perhaps as very transactional, more of a utility. You've looked at the content side as just the marketing, and there's been a shop button to flip you back and forth. And there's almost a bit of a disconnect between the two. Well, now it can all live, content and commerce, under one umbrella seamlessly without sort of a friction for that user experience. How'd I do?
I think you nailed it. I would also say that it's not vaporware either.
Correct.
This is the first webinar on content and commerce.
Yeah.
But these are two real products, not frameworks for doing it, that take a lot of custom development and a couple of years to implement. So
yeah,
I think everything you said, plus real speed to market, real products, real value.
And to that point, Tom, there is the possibility of a rapid speed to market here. You may not want to just dive right in with the entire thing perfectly designed and architected, because you can get so much value pretty quickly by having the two systems start to walk down that path together within your organization. Sergey, any final thoughts from your side?
Well, yeah, if I guess we probably did a misstep that we didn't introduce Sitefinity and Znode from the beginning for the audience that may be new to either,
both,
or as a matter of fact,
yeah.
both. Right. So speaking of vaporware, Sitefinity is a well-established platform. It's been around for more than 15 years. It's featured in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for DXPs. It's now in the third generation, I would say, while we're busily working on the fourth generation for the platform. So you can use it. Our leading offer is cloud-based. So it's called Sitefinity Cloud. That's
name.
Completely hosted, managed, secured, scalable, etc. Available sort of worldwide in 18 different locations. But if there is a preference on part of an organization to self-host, we also offer sort of a slimmed down version. It was the original version of the product, but Sitefinity Cloud sort of grew out of that to fulfill that need if there is a desire to self-host. Both generally offer comparable functionality. I think there's a trend these days that companies that used to be what they call on-prem abandon their old version. They invest in the new hosted speed of vehicle, so to speak, and then they leave their older customers behind. We try to sort of carry the functionality on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
So whether, cloud, it's not just a CMS, and it's not strictly speaking a DXP. It's an environment for building, maintaining, and hosting websites with a full development environment, right, which in the case of self-hosting, you will need to sort of build and construct yourself, but that's your choice.
And there's a lot of governance and value and resilience that you get from that Sitefinity Cloud environment. We certainly like projects that we get to leverage that environment. So the next webinars that we do together, we're going to talk about more of how to get into a personalized commerce and content experience. And there is part of the Sitefinity platform is Sitefinity Insight, and that helps you evaluate the effectiveness of your content and your digital experience. And when we were able to surface some of the data points and events that are happening in the commerce world with Znode in the mix, I think it's going to be a pretty compelling offer. So we're looking forward to those conversations. Thank you both. Appreciate it. if it's not apparent, we're very excited about this at Flywheel. Thank you for letting me join you in this conversation, and I very much look forward to the next one.
Great. Thanks for moderating, Scott.
All righty.
Lovely conversation, and yeah, future is bright.
Indeed.
Yeah. Thank you both.
Thanks, guys.